The way I would define active listening is staying humble and being perpetually curious. And I just don't know that people are self-aware enough to lean into true humility and not lead with their agenda or their insecurities or their needs or whatever, or project that in some way. And then being perpetually curious. And if all you do is stay humble and ask questions, which is active listening, and really lean into that, it's amazing what you can learn without memorizing a script.
Welcome to Real Leadership, the podcast that spotlights leaders who make, move, and process things in the real economy. Together, we go to the heart of leadership to discover the strategies and hard-earned lessons from pragmatic, gutsy leaders who operate in a world that is more steak than it is sizzle. I'm your host, Jim Weaver, Chief Executive Officer of the Owner Group, where we believe that real leadership matters. Let's go. Today, I'm joined by Chrissy Dunlap, Chief Revenue Officer of BirdieBox. Before joining BirdieBox, Chrissy built a successful leadership and sales career in the sports industry, a journey that began serendipitously as a freshman when she slipped into a job fair meant for seniors and discovered In Stadium's booth. That chance encounter sparked a passion for the business of sports, and Chrissy quickly rose through the leadership roles at In Stadium, Camelot Sports, and then the Dallas Stars. She also held influential positions with the Susan G. Komen Foundation and Panasonic USA. Chrissy joined BirdieBox in 2018 as Director of Business Development, becoming one of the company's first hires. Initially launched as a golf subscription service, BirdieBox soon evolved into a leader in corporate gifting. Now as CRO, Chrissy leads the company's sales and revenue strategies, driving its growth and innovation in the corporate giving space. Welcome, Chrissy.
Thank you so much for having me.
How you doing today?
I am doing wonderful. Thank you. How are you?
I'm great.
Good.
It's a little cloudy here, but other than that, we're great. Well, let's start big picture, if that's okay. What does BirdieBox do? Unpack that for us. That's a pun there.
Yeah, it's fun. I always tease people like this wasn't a beautiful read, by the way, but this wasn't at career day when I was in school. So it's a fun gig. BirdieBox, I like to summarize it as it's a one-stop shop for high-end luxury gifting on a B2B platform. So think like influencer gifting with high personalization, high touch, but to scale, to volume for corporations, everything from new hires to special events, sales process. Sports has been kind of our bread and butter, and that led us into the corporate place.
Influencer gifting. What do you mean by that? I'm not hip to that term.
Oh, well, come on a journey.
I need to get schooled.
Yeah, I mean, think like very, very personalized, unique, not logos on everything. It's not your standard Bose headphones. Like, I want to get into the psyche of what's going to make you as Jim tick, as well as maybe you as a CEO. And pull the psychology of connection into the engagement strategy that we're going to create by curating a gift moment. And you're just one of maybe hundreds or thousands of people within that organization that we could do that with through a little formula of psychology implementation, so to speak, that we can put some fuel behind and kind of scale that. Okay,
so you timed it perfectly, but this morning it's kind of cloudy out today, and I was all wet and damp coming in, and honestly, it made me just a little bit cranky. Not very cranky, but and I walked to my office and I had one of your boxes, and it was a really nice surprise. You had the Man in the Arena on the cover, and then some cool electronic stuff. Yeah, that's I'm getting what you guys are doing. That was really that was cool. It was a really cool gift.
Thank you so much. It's one of those where it's like, listen, I just want you to know, like, I'm thinking of you and I'm digging deeper than just pulling something out of a swag closet.
Yeah.
And if it's something that gives you a pause in a chaotic day, and it makes you step back and go, wow, this is really thoughtful, it hit its mark. If you take a picture and send it to your wife or whoever, check this out, like that, that's what we're going for, is the moment that makes you go, this was made for me versus I'm one of hundreds.
Yeah. I think people have a preconceived notion when it comes to kind of corporate gifts, right? So how did you guys land on this? And it seems like it would be really like super expensive. Like, who are your clients, and why do they pick you?
Yeah, That's a great question. And if you can bear with me, I'll give you a little bit of a long-winded answer because I think the framing is important.
Yeah.
Listen, the industry is a $250 billion plus industry. It's massive. So if you take the Yetis, the Tumi, the Bose of the world, plus, promotional products and you umbrella the whole thing, it's massive. And more, especially since COVID, personalization has been a bigger ask and a demand. People are craving connectivity and authenticity. And so when you look at the supply chain, you've got manufacturers who make high volume of product and they have long lead times and it's limited customization unless you're doing 65,000 bobbleheads for your opener, right? They provide typically to suppliers who will sit on depth of inventory from multiple brands or manufacturers, still passing along minimum quantities and setup fees for decoration, limited decoration capability. And then they typically supply to distributors. Distributors, I'm going to oversimplify for illustration here, but most of the model is made to move inventory quickly, high volume, and like really efficient decoration. So they limit the amount of decoration they're going to do in-house. They inherit and pass along the minimum quantities. You're then going to have setup fees for that decoration, typically variable data, which is what the industry calls personalization, names, initials, et cetera. Is cost prohibitive. So they either don't offer it or they charge crazy setup fees where it prices out of budget. And then they're going to charge kitting fees, packing fees, storage fees, all the things, right? And so the average question we get is, why doesn't my $100 feel like $100? Well, because it's not, because $30 is going through the supply chain and the fragmentation that just exists and is accepted in the industry. Yeah. That's why when you sit down, to your point of a preconceived notion, people are expecting a catalog. And the first questions I always get is, well, what's your lead time and what are the setup fees? Right? And I think when you look at BirdieBox, we started subscription-based, as you mentioned, but there were some happy accidents and then some intentional development that came out of that. You would fill out a profile and you would say, hey, listen, I'm what was your alma mater?
I went to Berklee School of Music.
Oh, a music guy, even better. Okay, I'm gonna run with this. Okay. So you could say I went to Berklee School of Music. I love country music. What's your vibe?
That's really not my vibe. I did play country music.
You played?
Yeah.
What'd you play?
This isn't about me though.
Oh no, this is how this works. This is how this works, Jim. We share the stage.
I toured with Kevin Sharp. I played drums back in the 90s, and I played with a West African, a Senegalese pop band. I did the jazz thing. I lived out of a van for 3 years in an indie rock and roll band. So yeah, I kind of covered the gamut. I played in a circus.
Oh my gosh, the layers.
So you're a working musician. If it pays, you learn to love it.
It's oftentimes I always say desperation leads to resourcefulness, which breeds creativity. So hey, you'll find a way to make the dollar if you have to, right?
Exactly.
Okay, that's fascinating. We're gonna unpack that some more. Okay, so let's say I'm gonna pull your jazz card. Let's just say you like jazz music. Yep. And you're a bourbon guy and whatever. So we would send you, because you were a golf fanatic. We would send you a gift every month, but it would be lifestyle items. Because every time you go to a golf tournament, what do you get? A sleeve of balls, a hat, a fitting of sorts, and you already got all your gear. So I might have given you that shirts, that Travis, Matthew or Peter Millar, quarter zip, but it'll have your university on the shoulder. And then I'll give you the tumbler that'll actually fit in the holder and it's going to be etched with your initials. And then I'll give you the speaker that clips to your bag that's going to have a QR code to, current contemporary jazz, whatever. Right? And so you would get that on a reoccurring basis. And because we built the infrastructure to do a one hyper-personalized gift, we didn't realize the power that was going to have in an industry that was so fragmented with fees and minimums and all the other aspects. So we just had a member one time who was a golf pro said, hey, can I just do 144 of these? And we did them for his tournament. And then the sponsor of a tournament was Delta Airlines, said, hey, can I do 5,000 of these? And the efficiency in that model was just way more economical than the subscription side. So subscription shut after maybe a couple years. And then 2018 is when they hired me. And I was one of the first sales hires that they brought on to lead us into pro sports. And as we kind of looked at the industry and we started to target, okay, these curated, personalized experience. So that variable data is kind of the white label solution we provide first. And then the actual packaging, the boxes themselves and the kitting of that. We realized that the industry the only ones making product are manufacturers. Distributors, they sit in a lane. Suppliers sit in a lane. Well, I can't build a company, or we can't build a company off 15 points from Yeti drinkware, right? So we had the trend data from the consumer side, and we decided, we wanted to stay high-end luxury. We didn't want to go promotional tchotchkes and whatnot. So we had to build equity around the quality of our products. And we wanted to make products that we could efficiently customize in-house with our decoration methods. So we got into product development, and then we created our own brand equity around each of those product lines. So we have a consumer electronic line called BB Tech.
So this stuff you sent me, that's actually, you guys actually made that?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Really?
Yes, sir.
Oh,
yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
and when
great.
I say we also have, there's a gentleman who runs a phenomenal company, and he's the mastermind behind it. He's got the PhD and the engineering and the patents and all the things, so we partner up. So I can't take, it's not like I'm trying to take all the brain trust, but yes.
That's I would not have thought that.
Yeah.
That's
thank
amazing.
you. Yeah. So consumer electronics, we have a travel gear brand called Hudson Cole, Brooklyn, New York. A drinkware, everything from crystal to glass to insulated and charcuterie boards called Old Times. And then we've got a women's line, which is handbags, blankets, candles, etc. And that's called Charlotte
you guys
Lender.
make.
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
Wow. I'm a little slow. Yeah, I have this right here. We don't do a lot of. This is the heated coffee.
That's exactly right.
Tumbler that you sent me, which is wonderful.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah. So now, because we've got the product development within our scope of services, so it really starts with the product, and then it's the decoration, that variable data to scale. It's our custom packaging and the kitting. Those are kind of the four things that carved us a lane in this industry. And now what should have been some of our largest competitors, arguably on paper, so distributors, are now some of our largest thought partners and clients. So we white label the services for them and or the product.
Yeah, that's interesting. You guys are you're a young company. Mm-hmm. And you were employee number 4, you said?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, and you're growing fast.
Yeah, we're really blessed.
Yeah.
It's been a journey. A lot of blood, sweat, and tears go into it, literally. But
with that kind of growth,
those
there's a lot of make or break moments, right? So was there something that happened, a memorable moment that kind of launched you or unlocked some potential along the way? It's always interesting, the war stories, in a startup. You got anything good?
Yeah. Actually, I think I've got maybe 2 for you. I'll start chronologically, and you can tell me if you want the second.
Okay.
One was COVID. I was pregnant. I had to go through a long fertility journey with my husband. We had a scare. This was all mid to end of 2019. We had a scare, and I got put on a lay flat bed rest for 5 months.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like the personality of a Jack Russell, hyper, go, go, go. So I had to lay down all day. It was crazy. But we were going into a peak season, holiday time. I could at least put my brain into something productive. My husband is a saint, and just showed up in all the ways and more that you could ever pray for, And the week I had Gentry as our son, he's 4.5 now, he's awesome. But the week I had him was the week in March when everything was shutting down.
Wow.
And I remember we didn't even know Jared, my husband, could be in the room because the hospital was updating their policies daily at that moment. Mm-hmm. And so I remember going in, we had Gentry, all was good, we come home. And basically at that point, majority of our business was actually pro sports focused, a little bit of some college bowl games and the college football playoff and whatnot, but it was mainly pro. And if you remember, ESPN was blowing up that week, this canceled, this postponed, et cetera, et cetera.
Let me double click on that real quick. So sports, or when you say it's sports, so you are distributing stuff that's, are your gifts are sports related, or it's gifts to sports people, or what do you mean by that?
Thank you for asking. So we would typically gift to premium seat holders on behalf of the team. So you own season tickets or a suite. We would also gift to their sponsors. We would do internal staff gifting, new hires, things like that. And then occasionally, if there's a special event of sorts, they're having their casino night or their golf tournament or whatnot, we would do the gifts for those moments as well.
I'm sorry. I saw that in my notes, and I wasn't
good.
sure what you meant by that. Okay, so go on. All right. So it's
no,
COVID.
thank you for that.
ESPN is like the whole world is blowing up. All right.
Yep.
You're about to give birth.
Yes. I give birth. I survive. He survives.
Yeah.
Everybody's good.
Yeah.
And I get back, and I remember, we weren't even home 48 hours, and I was on the phone with my CEO of like, okay, what's the state of the business, and how's everybody doing? Mm-hmm. And we called an all company meeting, and everybody at that time, especially in this space, was going after PPE products. So they were going for the masks, the liquid sanitizers, and quite honestly, even at that time, I felt it intuitively, but been validated since in data, like that's actually very triggering for people.
Yeah.
You're not evoking like a positive emotion, when you're giving that. People don't know what the hell's going on. So and then the other thing that was probably happening, if I had to guess, was people were probably following up going, hey, what's going on with this order in my pipeline? They were showing up a little self-serving. So we wanted to be very intentional to show up as a giver. That's a big mantra that we have internally, not just because of the nature of gifting, but because of the psychology of how you build trust with somebody. I need to earn my street cred and show up for you fully present before I make an ask, And so we looked in our inventory, and we had a strong list of AR. We had a strong pipeline going at that time. And we looked in our inventory, and we had gifts that we could curate for like a home hosting moment, some tech items, et cetera. Again, I think part of the blessing of owning our brand. So we had deep inventory that we decorate on demand. So it wasn't decorated yet. And instead of going to our partners or prospects and asking for something, what's the commitment, what's the whatever, we just started reaching out to people with donated COVID care packages.
Wow.
So I would call you as my buddy at the Charlotte Hornets, whoever. I'm in Dallas. I'll use the Cowboys.
Yeah.
I would call you at the Cowboys, and I would just say, Jim, how are you doing? And you would be shocked at the number of senior executives, male and female, that would just get emotional with you on the phone immediately. Because they didn't know if they had a job. They didn't know if their teams did. You don't know what health issues are going on in their immediate circle. And from there, all we said was like, hey, listen, man, like, I know we can't, we can only have a minor impact to things, but if it helps with headspace and you want us to gift your staff, if you want to, we'll donate some gifts to them. If you want to donate to your partners, they don't have media assets for a sponsor right now, or they don't, they're not getting their tickets. Like, you got a handful of those people, the top X percentage that you want to take care of, let us know and we'll donate. And the outpouring of appreciation and gratitude was fulfilling enough. We had a number of teams take us up on those offers at the time. One of them used over 100 gifts for a certain level of like premium clients. Yeah. And it helped them just keep a thread until season could pick up.
Sure.
And then we were coming up on 3 months, and we didn't know like how things were going to pan out. And we told our team when we launched the COVID care packages, we said, here's the other piece. In order to sustain as long as we can, we're probably going to have to make some cost reductions, but we don't want to necessarily lay off. We don't know how to navigate this. We're new to it like you are in this moment. So we thought we would offer it to you first if you want to volunteer for any sort of a reduction or unpaid time off or whatever. We'll let you discern, because everybody has different dynamics, and you let us know. So sales team had something to give to clients, and then the rest of our staff could reflect and make a decision that made sense for their family. And we had every single person in the company come back and offer some sort of reduction. And collectively, it was more than we would have ever forecasted.
Sure.
In that time. And that, honestly, the combination of those two things, the care packages and then the staff, like kind of all coming together to save their colleagues' job as well as their own, got us through the next 2.5, 3 months. And then it was summer, and our corporate business just kicked up through the roof.
I bet. Yep.
You got all those people remote, and they're trying to keep culture and keep connectivity. So then it was like that saved us. And then fast forward a year later, all those teams that, took COVID care packages or that we reached out to or whatever, not only were placing orders with us, but then they were also referring and pulling in their friends. And we never asked that, but it was, that was a moment that was pretty course changing for us, that I'm very proud of our collective team, not just the leadership side, but, the collective team, for the greater good of how we all kind of embraced that, even given the unknowns of a season.
Yeah, that's amazing. Okay, that was a good one. You said you have two.
If you want it, I want to be respectful of your time.
I'd love to hear it. I'm telling you, like moments like that. COVID was an amazing time for us as an organization too. You're right. Moments like that really can define you, especially if you're willing to take the long view and pull together as a team. It can be absolutely, the trial is where the beauty rises typically. So let's hear your other one.
Well, the other one's like, it's super fun. I think before I go there, just one more note on that story though, that COVID one, because I was out on maternity leave, and we were such a small company at the time, they actually had to write a maternity leave because I was the first one in the company to have a baby. That's how you get policies. Yeah, I know. But it was amazing. And, but because I was out, my CEO had to cover for me. So he had to cover the sales team. Well, this is the first time I've ever been in a truly like single focused, dedicated sales role. I've done sales throughout my career, but not like this. First time I've ever managed people. I'm a first time executive, all the things. And he was able to get in, and there's no ego here on any of our parts. So he was able to get in and find the blind spots I didn't know I had. And by the time I came back from maternity leave, he had Q-tipped the fundamentals of my team and my KPIs and my CRM system, things that I didn't know yet or to ask about. And I came back to such a better baseline. Wow. And it allowed me to step in stride much faster, I think, than how I had left it. And I thought I was doing good, right? It's all good intent, but you don't know what you don't know. But letting him behind the curtain was a moment where I felt like he was able to help reframe and reshape some things that took us through the next season as well. So I thought that was good to just kind of do a day in the life,
Now, didn't I read that you had to kind of return the favor at one point? Was that with him?
Yes, we did read that.
You stepped into his role. Tell us about that.
So he had, without oversharing his personal details, he had a health issue, man. And it was, for months he was kind of slowly getting lethargic, didn't know what was up. Long story short, it was a heart issue. Wow. And I'll never forget, I was back with my husband visiting his family in the panhandle of Texas. And he calls me at like 6:30 in the morning. And he's on the way to the airport to get on a flight to go to one of the number one hospitals and cardiologists in the country for heart surgery.
Oh, wow.
And it all happened like that.
Yeah.
And so he was like, okay, you're going to have to step in as interim. Here's who you go to for what. Like, here's how you prioritize and bucket things. And also goodbye, ?
Wow.
And it was, you build something with somebody. When you just work at a job, you spend a lot of time with them. They can kind of become family more than just friends. But then when you build something, he's my brother from another mother, Mm-hmm. And so then you have this really surreal moment as you're getting off the phone of like, this is going to be the last time I talk to you before surgery, and it could be the last. So that was very emotional on both parts.
Yeah.
It gives me a knot in my throat just thinking about it. But again, our team is amazing. Our investors and our board are amazing. And I stepped in not knowing what the F I was doing. And I was like, okay, humility wasn't an issue,
Right.
So then it was just, I had to be curious and I had to lean on people smarter than me.
Yeah.
And then I just had to be really diligent on time management. And we had just moved warehouses. In Miami, we went from a 3PL to our own warehouse, and we had just started implementation of a new warehouse and inventory management system. Huge projects.
Yeah.
And my sidekick, who the other half of the brain for this company, so there's myself and then Frances Gulick, who's now our CIO. She was the VP of operations at the time. She was also going out on a well-deserved 4 or 5 week sabbatical with her husband to travel the world.
Wow.
Yeah. So Pat goes under, Frances goes out. I'm like the one-woman show with our VP of HR, Stacy, who's like our OG. Yeah. And her and I look at each other like, okay, here we go. And so I got my tail on a flight to Miami, and I basically lived down there for a month. Again, my husband is a Saint.
Yeah.
And I didn't know the first thing about running a warehouse or inventory management systems. But what I do know is I know people well. I know how to motivate people. I know I can identify efficiencies and gaps, and I have like a bigger picture kind of perspective of how I tend to approach things. So I was able to get in there and somehow navigate to a level of efficiency where we went from doing I'm going to make it up for illustration, but I know it was a 10x output. You know, we went from doing 100 gifts a day to 1,000. Yeah. I mean, within 2 weeks.
Just because of the timing of when he went out, it was when you were making this transition. Wow.
Yeah. But then we didn't have a leader on the floor, like actually managing that team at that time.
Yeah.
You know, and so we didn't even get a shot to even try it yet. And then they both drop out, and I'm like, shit, here we go. You know, I'm like, but
that's
hey,
awesome.
The team was awesome. It worked out. Everybody rallied, you know, but that was one of those things too. Frances came back from her sabbatical, and she was able to step in kind of like I did when Pat covered for me when I was out. And she was able to come in at a better established foundation in terms of the people. So her strength is probably the tech side and the systems, and mine's the people. So we complement. So I got her tight on the other side, I would argue, and she came in and made it 10 times better than I had even given it to her, you know?
Yeah.
But it's a good yin and yang.
That's incredible. You've had a pretty rapid ascent. Have you ever found yourself in a room where you're like, what am I doing here? Am I supposed to be in this room? Have you had those moments? I mean, you're around like some big time folks.
Yeah, all the time. I mean, you know, there was this one moment. It's one of my favorite people tend to gravitate towards the most, and it's obviously with the Cowboys. So I tried working with the Cowboys for 3 or 4 years with BirdieBox, and it's tough to get in. They have their own merchandise company, Dallas Cowboys Merchandising, and another company within that called 8180. But they do have a reputation, and I can speak to it firsthand. Even prior to BirdieBox, once you're in with the Cowboys, you're in, and they are so intentional and so loyal about the partnership and growing each other's business. So I just wanted in, man. I just like, give me my shot.
Yeah.
So we opened a showroom and experience center at the Star here in Frisco, where the Cowboys are headquartered. And that was very intentional. And it was during COVID and all the things. And we open it up, and 2 months later, we get a 20-minute meeting with Jerry Jones Jr. So Jerry Jr. heads up Dallas Cowboys merchandising, which is now our neighbor across the street. And so the family has to approve any tenant who comes into the Star. So they must know that we're not a true apples to apples competitor to allow us in there. Right. But I get 20 minutes with Jerry Jr. and clearly I'm going to have an agenda, but I have to practice what we preach, and it's show up as a giver, and I can't just lead with my shit.
Right.
And so, that was a moment when he walked into that office where I was like, how am I even in this setting? And I start reading and watching interviews and prep for this because I'm very type A. And I find this article where he got inducted to the College Sports Hall of Fame back in Arkansas, where he's from, in 2019. And he was getting interviewed, and one of the reporters had said something like, you know, hey, you should be so proud following in your dad's footsteps. How do you feel? And his response was something to the effect of, my dad was a big brand before the Cowboys were even in our family. So much so that when I was in elementary school, I nicknamed myself Jerome. Friends and family and, you know, growing up called me Jerome. The plates on my car said Jerome, you know, and he goes, I'm blessed for the doors he opened, but I'm proud of the legacy I'm creating, you know, to paraphrase his answer. And so he runs DCM. I don't want to put a star on it because the guy can have access to anything and he sees it produced every day. So I get online, spend 20 minutes, find this really cool drawing of AT&T Stadium. And I have my designer tweak it up, make it look real pretty. And then I put his name on the box and I drop the junior. His email, he doesn't even sign it with a junior. It's just Jerry Jones. So to me, this is intuitive. And so we give him the tour at the showroom, and it takes a whole like 3 minutes because it's like 1,500 square feet. And then I give him this gift, and he sees the drawing of the stadium and his name, and he goes, "Where'd you get the art?" And I said, "I found it online." And he said, "You don't understand. I haven't seen this since the day the architecture firm pitched us the concept for the stadium."
Oh, wow.
He said, "No one in my family has this framed. This is going in my office. This is awesome."
Wow.
So total luck of the draw, right? But I'm like, okay, now I might not arguably know as much, have as much experience, but I'm already creating a connection that's deeper rooted and it's authentic. So just because the imposter syndrome can be there, I'm rooting myself in a different way that I can connect and control, like how I show up. So then he opens the gift, and we had $500 to $800 of product in there. I honestly couldn't even tell you what was in it. But on the inside lid, I had my design team do vintage Arkansas license plates and put Jerome on them. And then we commemorated the article below that.
Wow.
And so he opens it up, and he actually teared up for a hot second, and he was like,
"No kidding."
Yeah.
That's a good.
Yeah.
That's a good sales call.
Dude, I can't even tell you. Like, it's like, that's why what we do is so fun. You know, it's so fun. But that meeting, I mean, he pulled up his coat jacket and he had full on goosebumps, you know, and he, instead of 20 minutes, he gave us an hour and a half. He called his assistant on the spot and just said, you know, clear the calendar. Yeah. And that was 3 years ago. And fast forward, now I'm sitting in a almost 70,000 square foot fulfillment center down the road with Cowboys as our landlord for location number 2.
Wow.
You know, it just, these are things that are like, yes, there's happy accidents. Like, I didn't necessarily think we were going to like grow with them in that way, but I knew intuitively there were synergies. And I think just being fully present, intentional with somebody really can make someone pause and lean into you with curiosity versus somebody like that. He knows anywhere he goes, somebody wants something from him. The last thing I want to do is be just another number of the day of people that is just coming after him. I just wanted to show up for him in hopes that the opportunity then or later would allow me to bridge a relationship and kind of like feel each other out. Are we equally yoked? You know, and it just, it did happen to snowball in a beautiful way. But that was a fun one where I shouldn't have been in that room, but I was.
Yeah. you earned it. You earned it for sure.
Thank you.
Land top technical and professional talent with Focus. Focus specializes in direct hire and contract placements, connecting you to exceptional candidates in IT, engineering, management, and more. Elevate your team with Focus. Visit getinfocus.com.
I was going to say this before, but I hate tchotchkes.
Yeah.
So you guys are really on to something.
Thank you.
What do you think? And I love the rifle approach to sales as opposed to the shotgun approach. You know, really dialing in. Really, what do you think when you work with a sales team now? So, what do you think? What are the most common mistakes you see salespeople make, or common misconceptions in sales that's keeping people from really be able to make those connections?
I would say one is, I'm going to call it active listening, but let me think through my answer. The way I would define active listening is staying humble and being perpetually curious. And I just don't know that people are self-aware enough to lean into true humility and not lead with their agenda or their insecurities or their needs or whatever, or project that in some way. And then being perpetually curious. I could ask you what genre of music do you like? And you give me that one soundbite. And if this wasn't your podcast, I would dig into that so hard with so many questions because I'm just curious. And somehow in some way that will add value in another aspect of our conversation later. But I just want to know you. And the thing is like, people have their personal and professional agendas anytime they take a meeting and they show up for that day. And if all you do is stay humble and ask questions, which is active listening, and really lean into that, it's amazing what you can learn without memorizing a script. And I think a lot of people think, and that's how they're trained, unfortunately, is that's what sales is. You have a script, you got X number of KPIs to meet, and it's just such a miss for how people actually function.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. You watch The Office at all?
Yes.
So when Dwight is trying to learn how to sell to a woman and he's like,
oh God, I love this already. Keep going.
Well, he's standing there and he's like, you're going to sit there and I'm going to sell to you. You know, it's just, but that is the approach, you know, it's like,
so true.
Oh man.
Uncomfortably true. True.
Yes. You know, the problem with active listening is awkward. It was funny when you were explaining what you did in the beginning, I got off track with I had a moment of, I stumbled because I was kind of pulled into what you were saying and I forgot where we were going. And that's kind of the risk that I think a lot of people want to avoid, of, you know, not knowing what to say or, you know, so how do you coach around that?
Great question. Let me think through that. My first reaction, I'll give you my first reaction, but I want to think through my answer for you. My first reaction is I'm probably an outlier because I am comfortable being the extreme of vulnerability. So if I have a moment where I trip up, I actually will lean into my self-deprecating humor to then frame my vulnerability. And I'll be like, oh my God, Jim, I'm so sorry. I had a point, but I'm enamored by your circus story. And like, I don't know how to get back on track.
Yeah.
And I'll just do that. And then typically people want to help people, and
Sure.
that's genuine and it's endearing. So then they'll help me get there. But not everybody's comfortable being vulnerable. So what I try to teach people is, again, it's the curiosity piece. So if you just reframe the same issue with a question and say, I'm trying to connect the dots. You just said something really interesting that made me queue up or made me lean in over here. But there's a way that this connects to this, and I don't know how to get from A to B.
Yeah.
I'm still like telling them where I want to go, but I'm asking them for help in a different way.
Yeah.
And again, people lean into that, or they'll continue to pontificate and elaborate on the soundbite they just gave, which you might get even more information on. But you don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to have a response. Like, I would rather just lean in with more questions and then have a dialogue where together we get to a better place. Because if I ask you leading questions or read from the script, at the end of the day, I know I got to ask you the same 4 things. What's your lead time, your budget, your quantity, what, you know?
Yeah.
But if I take you on this other journey, we actually have an opportunity to create an engagement strategy with a baked in return versus I'm just going to have an expenditure of event gifts and whatever else.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
Yes. What you said just a little while, you don't have to have all the answers. I think that is one of the biggest mistakes I've made, people make going into a sales context, a relationship building context. You don't have to have all the answers. I think that's, and then knowing that then opens you up to curiosity, right?
Yeah. Well, and sometimes I'll reframe the question back to them. You know, if they, let's say you asked me a question and I don't have the answer, I could just say, that's interesting. And I'm comfortable buying myself time and just saying, let me think through that. But curious, what's your expectation behind that? Or what made you ask that question? I'll do that just to buy myself time sometimes. And then again, I might learn something different, or the way you actually thought through the question isn't the way I heard it the first time.
Yeah. It builds good opportunity for more insight. That's great. Okay. Left turn. So, well, not really a left turn, talking about leading your team. So you're at the top of your organization. And you're a leader of leaders at this point, and you've got to set the tone in terms of energy, consistency. What do you do to make sure that you're showing up the way that you need to show up every day?
I'm a big one on routines. So there's this thing in sports called I think it's ideal performance mindset. Have you heard this? Does that ring a bell?
Yeah, it rings a bell, but go on.
Ideal competitive mindset is also a phrase, and I kind of take that and I look at what are the patterns. So think of yourself as an athlete and you're fixing to go and you're going to play in the Super Bowl today, and you've had a whole season of games leading up to that. What's your routine that gets you game ready? You've always got these headphones. You always got a certain playlist or a certain song or certain whatever, and you do that to basically channel your brain to say, oh, it's game time. Oh, I got to get into this level. I got to go into next overdrive, right? That's an exaggeration for walking into the office on a daily. But my point is there's routines and habits that are formed behind that. And then what happens is I feel like you get to educate and guide your subconscious a little bit. So the more habitual I can get. So in the mornings for me, my husband and I have a divide and conquer routine with my son Gentry and how we get ready and Gentry is the light of our morning. So I already start off positive. Yeah. Right. And then after I drop him off on my way to school or on my way to work, I'm either, I'm listening to my worship music. I'm listening to a podcast. And then the 30 minutes before I get to the office, I have gratitude time every morning. And I basically have 30 minutes where I will talk to text on my drive to anybody who's on my heart and on my mind, just a gratitude piece. It's just, it's a mindset. It's a framing. It's, and life happens. Like, listen, I get, I want to be friends with you, but then we have Thanksgiving next week and I'm with family time. And next thing I know, it's all the holidays and I blink and it's been 3 months since I talked to Jim. Yeah. Right. But if I know I've got gratitude time, 30 minutes every morning, and I know you're going to travel to see family for the holidays on December 15th, I might go to December 15th in my calendar and say, hey, Jim's leaving for holidays, might want to reach out. I have to put process behind my relationships a little bit, or otherwise I'll lose people.
Yeah.
And so I do my gratitude time before I get into the office. And then I'm typically here before everybody else. So I've got an hour or so to get my head right on my inbox and my priorities for the day and my prep so that I can go back to back to back and have the 20% of your day you can't plan that shows up, good and bad, to be present for. But I have to have that morning routine. And if I don't get my gratitude time, or I don't get to listen to that podcast or do that worship music, then I come in a funk. Like you were talking about this morning, like I would come in a funk, and I feel that. But the ideal competitive mindset, like how do I show up and get in my performance drive for the day? I have to do that and do that well.
Understanding your labor market is crucial for successful recruitment. Onin Staffing's Recruitment Strategy Guide provides insights specific to your geographic location and the positions you're hiring for. Our Recruitment Strategy Guide delivers a clear snapshot of your labor market and actionable intel to tackle market-specific challenges. With Onin's expertise, we help you navigate and win in your competitive landscape. Empower your recruiting process with the insights you need. Learn more about Onin's Recruitment Strategy Guide at oninstaffing.com/strategy. You got a big job. You're a wife. You're a mom of a young boy.
Yep.
Like 4-ish now?
Yep, that's right.
Okay. Can you have it all? I mean, how are you doing it? I mean, that's a lot. What would you, and a lot of young professional moms, I think, wrestle with this. So how do you do it all?
Well, first off, I would want to define all.
Okay.
And then within that, I would probably want to define what are your true priorities in life. And then it's your responsibility. I feel like the more actively self-aware someone is, so I don't just profess that I procrastinate. I actually have a process and I'm working on it with tools or whatever. So you have to be actively self-aware. I feel like the more actively self-aware you are, the more responsibility you have on how you regulate your energy and how you show up to people and situations. And so for me, having it all, to your question, is probably more like what in that season is all, quote unquote, for me. And it's season driven. And so at the end of the day, it's always my husband and my son. Our faith is always a part of that, but that doesn't always mean that we're walking in our faith well and consistently. And we'll go 2 months and we haven't been to church. And I'm like, God, we got to get back, but those are probably my first 2 buckets. And then work is just work. You take Chrissy out of BirdieBox, and I feel like I'm uniquely qualified to be in the seat I'm at here for my gifts, my passions, and what the role requires of me. But you take a driven performer and put them in any organization or function, there's no such thing as a work-life balance. Because I'm going to over-index. If I retired tomorrow, I'm just going to find 3 other hobbies that I can pour myself into from a philanthropic standpoint, right? So to me, it's like if the first 2 stay equally yoked in some capacity, the career stuff can follow. And it's my responsibility to then constantly interview the season of leaders and colleagues I'm around to make sure that this can jive with my core needs. And if it doesn't, it's time to move on. Yeah. And that's hard. I see a lot of leaders who are at big companies who've been there, big tenure, and they know that that organization isn't the right culture, isn't the right fit for them, but they got too much at stake. They've got too much. They're building this for retirement and they won't leave. And what I would tell you is read all the stories of the most successful entrepreneurs. When you control that destiny and you take that step away and you balance it with those priorities, you end up having such more tremendous success that's not just financially driven. You get to control it. So control your playground and the playmates you play with, right? It's like we actually have that power, but you got to get to a place where you don't give a shit what other people think. And that's a tough spot, and that takes strong self-awareness.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that, being purposeful, being proactive on it, I divide, this isn't me, I didn't come up with this, it's Garrett J. White, I think, but body, being, balance, and business. And, physical health, body, being is spiritual health, balance is family life, relationships, and then business. And when I'm really purposeful about what you said, perfect answer, like, well, what is have it all? Like, we've got to define, what do I want? What do I really want? Like, truly. And then build it around that. And if one is actually healthy in all four areas, they do feed each other.
Oh my gosh.
Instead of drawing
so
from
true.
each other, right?
So true. You actually, there's so much less friction in your life. And I'm saying this, and I haven't even done this. It's like I've gotten tastes of it, but I haven't done it well and consistently. But that's why my ones and twos have to be my faith and then my husband and my son, because if I'm not rooted with him, then everything goes off tilt, right? And so it's, I don't know. I haven't even done it consistently or well, but I do know that there's truth in it.
Yeah. Well, it's, perfection is the enemy of excellence. So yeah, I mean, it's a work in progress for everyone. Yeah. All right. Well, that's a good spot to stop. We're up on time. Thank you so much, Chrissy. How can folks learn more about BirdieBox, connect with you, connect with your organization? We'll put it in the show notes, but go ahead and give us the rundown of the best places to connect with you.
Thank you for even asking that and being thoughtful about that. Find me on LinkedIn. Chrissy Dunlap, BirdieBox is on there as well. But you can always go to birdiebox.com. We have a contact us page. You can hit us up direct. All of our emails are listed on there too as a company. But our website and LinkedIn are probably the quickest.
Awesome. Well, we'll put those in the show notes. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hey, folks. Yeah, great having you. Thanks for listening. Until next time, keep it real. Thank you for listening. This podcast was powered by Onin, a family of staffing companies providing real staffing solutions to manufacturing, logistics, and food processing companies across the United States of America. To get in touch or learn more about partnering with an Onin Group company, visit us at www.oningroup.com. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time.